Hello, and welcome to a new episode of The Green Pill Secret. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and today we're going to talk about hegemony. Hegemony. And you may hear hegemony's masculinity, which implies that men dominate over women. And that may make some women's hackles go up. That's fair. Because what does it mean? Well, yes, technically the Greek is implying leadership and a rule by that leader. But in relationships, there are aspects of it which most women would actually like, and aspects which many women will not. And as a man, as my male listener might know, there are some aspects that he might like and some aspects that he won't like. One thing that I will say is that one of the biggest things, as I mentioned last week in energy, is a man's requirement to plan and work to make a date work well, to make sure she has a good time, to ensure that he's engaging and interested in her and wants to hear what she has to say. But I didn't mention this, which I think is the other aspect, the hegemonious aspect of it, that he pays for the meal. It's not just investing his time, it's investing his money. That aspect of hegemony is something that is unfortunately, from the man's point of view, a requirement that he has. Now, don't get me wrong, some women don't like just taking money from men. They realize that it is a power move and she doesn't want to necessarily give up that power. I'm not going to argue that a woman shouldn't have some power in relationships. All I'm saying here is that when the guy does it, he's not doing it to have power. He's doing it because he feels that it's the masculine thing to do. And it's maybe even his role to pay for that first meal. And many women will agree that that is his role to go and pay for that first meal and the second and potentially the third, if there are a third date or there is one. We don't know. It's hard to say if anyone is going to get that third or fourth or fifth or sixth or intimate relationship. Some relationships fizzle and burn, as many of mine within two. That's life. You move on. But I will say that as a guy, if a woman wants to go Dutch on a meal, it's not that I'm insulted. It's mainly just that I feel you're telling me as a woman, there's never going to be a second date. That's what you're telling me by trying to pay. It's not like I can't afford to pay for you. If you get a lobster thermidor with a steak, okay, then maybe I would. And I'm getting the salad, maybe I would like it if you at least paid for half. But only because you came out and you were trying to get as much bang for your buck. And if you come back and say, go ahead and pay, and I did have a woman, but she was a scammer, because had that happened in a real situation where she sat with me and we ate together, that's one thing. But if it is a scam where she's just going to duck off once she has the money, that's the scam. I'm not talking about a scam. I'm talking about an actual legitimate, we have this really expensive dinner. Yeah, I'll pay for it. And I'm not going to even think about her paying for it. But if it is something that I'm nibbling on breadsticks and she's having the meal of her life, I'm going to pay for it and think about whether this is the type of woman I want to be with. So there's a fine line in that hegemonic relationship. There's a fine line between being grateful that the man is paying for things. Don't be so ungrateful that you want to pay for half, and being entitled because he's there to give you money and buy you things. So, in this concept of hegemonic masculinity, what I really want to say is there are aspects that should never be sent to an extreme. The parts that the women don't like are the hegemonic aspects that are be here now, do this now, you are mine, you may not, you may, those rules, those demands on her, those are also just wrong. That is an extreme in the hegemonic discourse that, again, is going too far. It's okay for a man to pay a little more in those first dates, just as he's supposed to have more energy in those first few dates. It's okay for a man to maybe not like you sharing sexy pictures with strange men in a private person to person communication. That's not asking very much. I mean, she would certainly expect you as a man not to be sharing your sexy pictures with a strange woman. And so, in that sense, it is, again, a fine line. I don't think any man should say you can't put those sexy pictures on Instagram. And it's not her fault that some guy likes it. Okay. That she has every right to do. But if she's private messaging in Instagram those pictures to a specific guy, that that's a little bit creepy. And as that does go into an aspect of, well, then why are you with me if you're doing that with that guy? Then obviously, don't you think about my feelings? How would I feel about that? Because I can tell you that if was doing that to you, I was sending a nice, sexy picture to a girl that who wasn't you, you would be offended by that. So is it not just of me to ask you to not do that? That is gentlemanly and maybe an aspect of hegemony that I can support, but I define it in a very, very limited sense. Never did I say a woman can't communicate with a man privately that isn't his boyfriend. Of course she can. She could plan things and do things. Maybe she's planning a surprise party for her boyfriend. Maybe she's just planning something with her brother's friend just to do something nice for her brother, which has nothing to do with the boyfriend. It, she can have any conversation she needs or wants to have. All I'm saying here is, and I'm not, and she can share a nice picture, where she's out with friends. Of course, send the pictures privately. That's not a problem. But if she's in a lace stocking and just her bra and panties, I mean, that would not be typically appropriate to send to another guy any more than me in my Speedo. I mean, yes, I can go on Instagram and I'd be happy to share that in Instagram. And if a woman wants to put herself in her bathing suit on Instagram, fine, do that. That's making it public. But the private communication is what I'm worried about. I'm not saying don't put that sexy picture on Instagram. Go ahead, do it. That's on you. That's going back to the chasing likes. And I have different reasons for you doing that, for you not doing that. But it's not about the boy. It's got to be about you. That's the don't chase the likes. Don't put it on Instagram, but because of the likes, not because of the guy. That's not an appropriate hegemonic position for the guy to take. All I'm saying here is that, guys, we need to accept that we're going to pay a little more going into these relationships. And ladies, we might need to impose some boundaries just as you fairly should impose them on us. And those are the things that I want to say as far as hegemony and hegemonic masculinity, we may need to take into account, and you must be ready to take into account. But never, never, never does a man have total control over a woman. She always has the right to say no. She always has the right to walk away. She always has the right to her sovereignty. Never, never take that away from her. And that's my message for today. Thank you all, and I'll see you next week.